5 forward. We, on the other hand, only he's not a huge shooter. He's a decent volume guy. But we take a look at what he's doing,
life-threatening, actually.
He's not shooting enough, and he's a sub-7 shooter. Last season we saw he was at 15%, so we could have used that to see if he bounces back. Great, I'd love to see his giveaway to takeaway ratio not be a big albatross. Maybe snipers, they don't really care too much. You can't have too many guys negatives. Giveaways, I guess,
Ain't trading on the blue cross. I like him though. Almost Schneider. How well did he do?
We'll kind of touch on that as well. Rasmus Dahlin is an insane player.
More giveaway guy as well.
You don't really usually see this kind of blue line. Obviously, the Sabres, they've just thrown all their money at the blue line instead of the forward board, so that's why we're in the situation we're in. But they've got a lot of shooters. What I like to look for defensemen is their plus minus, first and foremost. Obviously, hits, blocks, giveaways,
and what's the stats?
One of the big things with defensemen is they're actually going to give
same thing, son of a bitch.
I don't like to have anybody more than really 70 giveaways in a season. You can see Dahlin as well to that threshold. He's played 39 games. So Byram most on the team despite playing the second lowest ice time of my defenseman. It might be nice talking about Mattias Andersson looking great on the paper, on stats, and defensive awareness, fucking whatever. He looks great when you look at his player cards. When he's on the ice, he's actually not that good. He could be a guy that you dangle in front of the AI and get something very, very nice in return. He's not really blocking shots here. I want to see a block per game out of most of my defensemen. And he's just about there, right? Samuelson to me is probably more alarming than a guy like Pippen. And obviously, Bo Byram's not really a hitter. Giving the puck away a good amount, taking it all away a decent amount on the defenseman. But he is a +3. He's producing points. So for all of his defensive faults, he's producing for me on the offense. So this is the same thing can't be said about Samuelson or Pippen. I like a guy like Kesselring. His ratio's pretty good. He's got a lot of block shots and a ton of hits. You love to see that. Owen Powers. Owen Powers is Sabres and hits. Oh my God, Sabres fans. Don't lag. Don't lag. But you can see that, Michael Kesselring, 17 points +4. He's a great partner for Bo Byram. He brings that physical edge that Owen Byram doesn't bring. You can see that the hits, you're on the opposite end of the spectrum. Same thing with blocks, giveaways and takeaways. Kesselring's a lot more cautious with the puck, and that's kind of fine for me. When you've got guys that are putting up points, Dahlin's blocking shots, and he's putting up a ridiculous amount of points. Powers doing a little bit of everything. Points, hits, blocks, turnover ratio. A little high, but he's playing 25 minutes, so I'm fine with it. He's one of my more aggressive players. So, honestly, a guy like Mattias Andersson or even Connor Timmins, though I'm less worried about him. He's got 45 blocks from the least amount of ice time of our defensemen. He's looking really, really good for me there. But Mattias Andersson is really just kind of bringing up the rear when it comes to points. He is a +1, so I'm not, urgent to get rid of him. I think maybe he could bounce back. Not the reason that we're not playoff position.
Who's my top D?
A sub 3.16 goal against Everton. Go back to looking at. But again,
I used signing a good left-handed D for a bright Schneider. It's making $9 million, so.
It's the goal ball. You're a goal away. Improvement in goaltending would be great.
Cameron Bottle will play with New Brennan on the second pairing. Bryce would be down in the third pairing with Susie and Farrell. Bill Lilly will probably play in the AHL. He's not ready for NHL time yet.
That not only has a bunch of high overalls, but has a bunch of those what I would like to consider micro stats. I know that shots and takeaways and hits and stuff, that's not micro in the sense of things, but really to me, the other thing I could do is fire Lindy Ruff and see if there's a better coach out there that we go through all the stuff again. Lindy Ruff is defensive head coach, which is, again, also very wrong. Maybe I lean into Chris Knobloch here, and we lean into his ability to coach forwards. I honestly think our assistant coaches are pretty good.
So for Mary's team.
For that man coach. What I could do is I could just fire one of those guys to both Lindy Ruff if I didn't want to get rid of them entirely, because I have one remote off, so I can do whatever I want with the budget. But as you guys can see, we'll look over
Aaron
there.
Creek retired Tucker.
So maybe it is not just, maybe it is a coaching thing. But again, I also think it's part of the challenge. We've turned it around. I'll go ahead and go another one to get to February 12th and just see how the team does.
I would love that guys are on this team now. Like, I negotiate with him now.
We're now 21, 25, and 5. I believe that puts us at 14, 12, and 1. Since I made those changes or made the trade for Noah Cates, our penalty kill is uptick, our power play is uptick, our goals against have gotten a little bit better. Honestly, at this point, guys, it might be time to fire the head coach Lindy Ruff. Although I will honestly say that the lines do kind of scream 500 roster. Zach Benson is now first line being with these guys, so you'll love to see that. Jason Zucker, still on that top line, doing a little bit worse for us here. I haven't really messed with the lines. I wanted to let them ride here. The second line, though, seemed to be a big plus. Yuri Kulik now plus 30.
You gotta give me extra 1.5 on top of that 3.1 mil, 4.6.
Video. And then Jeff Quinn with Josh Norris and Justin Danforth continues to be good, but Josh Norris continues to not be good for us. And again, he continues the trend of what he did last year. And honestly, at this point, I would just not pay with this. His giveaway takeaway ratio is still going to be, looks like it's going to be 500 forever.
We're not really given scripts. We don't want to sound like a robot. We want to sound like we're having a conversation with you.
We want to be different. We want to. The only way you can really nail your rebuild is by nailing the draft and player development. Today, guys, I'm going to show you my entire strategy for scouting and developing players to become a true dynasty. How's it going, everybody? And welcome back to Franchise Mode University, your one-stop for all franchise mode tips and tricks. Today, guys, we are going over scouting, which is a very crucial part of every single rebuild. You want to be able to nail your draft picks, nail those prospects, especially if you're going to be trying to tank and accumulate assets at the beginning. And a lot of times you'll be trading your aging assets to a 30-year-old player and beyond for those young superstars, and we'll also be covering how do you best develop those players. For starters, we're going to go to the Assign Scout tab here right on the first quick link. And we're going to be taking a look at our scouts. Now, every time you start up a franchise mode save, you'll be met with this same assortment of scouts. You'll have 17 of the 20 scouts. You'll be fully scouted in the pros.
All right, I just hope you were set that.
A couple regions, I think, especially the United States, is always missing one. But as you guys can see here, here are our regions for the pros. This is the most important if you do play with Fog of War on. If you play with Fog of War off, I really don't care too much about the pro scouting at that point, or trades and things like that. If you're Fog of War off, you'll be able to see the player's potential, the player's overall, everything about the players. You don't really need to worry about this. What you could do is hit the square button on PlayStation or X button on Xbox, and you can fire these scouts and open up yourselves more spots for your amateur scouts. Your amateur scouts are the ones that are scouting the prospects. And as you guys can see, I have auto scouting turned on. We'll touch on that in just a second, but I wanted to show you guys the basic setup.
Who's my top right-handed D right now? It's Schneider. Yeah, it's Schneider. Yeah, it's Schneider. And my second one is England.
That is your default amateur setup. I like to flesh this out with maybe one more Russian scout, one more USA scout, and one more European scout. You could forego the European scout or the Russian scout.
Carson Susie is good.
This is where the bulk of your
Sperry too.
But you certainly don't want to miss out on
easy trade him out.
Or even the USA.
For draft it, so something or extra guy.
The second round, the third round, like the majority of the prospects are going to be coming from these Canadian leagues. And if you're curious just how to add the scout, you see you can have 17 out of 20 scouts available. And with the scout salary over there, the price to see how much space you have to pay that. If you have $100 off, which is the way I like to play, you don't have to worry at all about your scout salary. You just throw money in them and they basically get all the best scouts available.
He wants to be here, huh? 5 years? Either 5 year, $3.5 million contract. That would definitely work. And
you can see here that
they're full move cross too.
Scouts that specialize in a certain reason, and that is a very, very big piece that you're going to need to focus on. We want to find a scout that is well equipped to scout the region we want them to. So we'll start here at the top in Europe. And I want to get a second European scout. So if I click the right stick and look at the key list check, you can see this is their region familiarity, which is basically how good they're going to be at scouting each region. This scout could also double as a Nordic scout. So say we scout all of Europe. We could then move this scout to Europe because they have A minuses. And I like to look for anybody that's at least A minus. Obviously, A plus is the best. And then trickling on the way down to E. But I'll hire this scout extra league.
Okay, took her on this team too. Why not, right?
I would absolutely take that. Even in LA, an A minus, absolutely fine with that. So we will just go ahead and
Yeah, we're going to scientists set my decor now.
Let's also go ahead and bring in a USA scout because there's 3 regions in USA. I'd like to have all 3 scouts doing something. Now, there's not as many prospects coming out of USA.
So,
rotate 2 to 3 regions.
the automatic out is probably to be Susie then.
With a certain region. I'll explain how you can be done with a certain region later on.
Yeah, I have to trade Susie right now. Fine trade. Let's see here.
An A plus in the East because we know that they're going to be in the East for us. So what I just did there, you can toggle between the scouts just by clicking the right or left triggers here. So we're back.
Third round, second round, really, second round, third round, third or fifth. Wow, that's the most I can get out of him. Okay.
Salary offered 2 years, bring it in there. Before we get to the
I would rather take this third or fifth.
You might remember this from the franchise mode 7 guide. If you haven't watched that one, go ahead and check it out. But auto scouting being on both, you can still overwrite the scouting assignment. So no matter what you set this to, you can still overwrite it. Now it's a couple clicks more, it's a bit more click intensive if you leave it on both. I do like to leave it on both because I don't mind the extra 30 seconds per scout it takes to go ahead and get rid of what they were, set the scout, and then reset what they're going to do. If you have this set to none, essentially when your scouts finish their assignment, they won't do anything in the meantime. That means you're going to have to micromanage a lot more. If you're playing the game, going day to day, and you're doing everything every single day, maybe that's not a problem for you, but I like to do the calendar sim and get through a lot of seasons and do lots of franchise modes, lots of different saves and challenges. I think both is the perfect sweet spot. So if I forget, or get busy, or a scout's in a region with not a lot of prospects, they can go ahead and do other things while I'm waiting for the scouts who I set in the larger regions to finish up. But now we're going to jump back into that assigned
So you're stuck on that contract, that's fine. 4 million, that's nothing. I didn't cap that right now.
Barracks here, the new scout, and they assigned him to USA, or him or her, to USA West. I don't want them in USA West because I hired them to be a USA East scout. We can go ahead and take a look at all the regions here in just a second. But if you're wondering, hey, how do I get them out of USA West and get them over to USA East? You can go ahead and highlight on the scout here and push the triangle or Y button. That'll bring up this menu. And you can see that we have 13 scouts active in North America, but that includes our NHL, AHL, and Canadian scouts. You can see here the rest of the world, Europe, Russia, the Nordic, and if you wanted to move a scout there, you absolutely could. For now, we wanted our scout from USA West to USA East. So we're going to go ahead and go to USA, and then move them over to USA East. So you can see that we have 1 scout in the region for USA West and Central.
He says still hurt though, that's a bit of a bitch, but whatever.
Nicolette, I'm finally playing for real. Refusing to give in because real freedom is worth it. Nicolette lozenge is clinically proven to relieve nicotine cravings fast.
You can see here, there's one there as well, and it'll show us our current scout that we're going to move their region accuracy. You can see that when we get to USA East, however, there are 0 scouts in the region. So when you go to change your region, it actually subtracts the scout. Because we should technically have 2 if we were including the scout, but it subtracts them. So if you're curious where did my scouts go, I thought I had them all set up. That might be what you're seeing. But let's go ahead, move over to USA East here.
That's what I need for forwards, actually.
$0 to voter mode is off. and it's going to take 4 hours, meaning basically it's going to take like a day of simulation for them to get there and establish themselves before they can start.
So my first time would be Celebrity, Will Smith, and it's Foley again, probably.
So we'll start with
Second time would be Kane, Malkin,
you'll get all of your amateur region groups, if you will.
maybe
You got
Krebs? Yeah, probably paid Krebs, will probably play their second line this year.
And I like to look at it by this view too. So because I have the auto scouting on, you can see over.
Also will play third line with Lisa. So I should probably get a third line left winger then.
I don't want my scouting every player in Russia until March 20th. I like to chunk it up into 6-week, 2-month increments of 6 to 8 weeks. So right now we're on September 20th. I'm going to go ahead and hit the select button, the A or X button. Scout specific players by toggling to the right and going there. And you can see that, yes, there's already selected players in here for me. And I don't want that. When I said that I don't like clearing out, this is what I need. So we go through and we just go hover over every player and hit the square or X button.
Let's see what's available for line rest players, shall we?
Until we can see over the right there. And I think it's going to be the best way to identify the player who's going to want to draft. Because you're not going to want to draft the player who doesn't have potential and is a 71 overall right now. That player might just stay in the AHL forever. What you want to find are those gems, those elite talents, and those high upside players. And the nice thing is, once you've already selected one player for potential comparison, all you have to do is select the next player, and it's already two potential comparison. So what I like to do is I just like to spam it, just smashing the X button and scrolling down, and you can see that we're on December 12th. So we're about 3 months out, so I'm going to actually go a little bit before that. We'll go to the start of December. So I'd like to go October, November, let's scout these players, and we'll come back on December. Once we're there, we know our date's December 3rd. We're going to go ahead and hit the start button to confirm our assignment. And you can see that our scout from Russia has only the players that we've selected. And we'll go through and do this for every scout. We'll go ahead and go to scout specific players, remove the current best line in here, and go ahead and just start at the top and scout each player, potential in comparison. You can see there's central scouting rankings. You can know which regions maybe you want to focus on or send an extra scout to. You can see how many of the top 100, which is my personal game, are in the region. So here we go. We're going to go ahead and get to December 3rd again. Push start, and now we've got our Liga Scout off and running. So you're going to go through this for all the scouts that we have here, and I'll come back on December 3rd to show you guys what I'm going to do once we start getting our scouting report back. And before I do any simulating for you guys, I'm also going to touch on how to develop your own players. That'll be a big thing once you draft them. How do I develop these players? And the best way to determine when you first start a save, who is your most valuable player, how should I look at my roster, is to come into the trade screen and to look at trade value. That'll tell you any guy potentially in the NHL that are want to sign on for the Sabres. You're keeping an eye on Owen Power. You're really trying to develop that defense in the forward. He's just 20 years old. Bo Byram at 24 still has a couple of years to progress. And players really do progress up until about 26, 27. When they turn 27, like Tate Thompson, you can see they have exact potential. Josh Norris is only 26 and is medium potential, so he still has a chance to grow basically until his 27th birthday. The difference between high, medium, and low due to the potential ranges, I should touch on this for you guys. Low means they're less likely to hit that potential range, so what they can. That's still a part of their potential. It's less likely. Medium, they're probably going to hit it. They won't be something spectacular, but they're probably going to hit the range. And then high means they're very likely to hit that range. They're very likely to be towards the top of a range to the high elite tier, but right into the elite. Means he's going to be a pretty much bang on. You're going to have a superstar on your hands. Medium elite and medium top 6 and medium. Medium's the one you're going to see most often. Low you will see. I don't like to go after low potential players unless they is low franchise.
Oh, fuck yes, 2 red S factors. Shit, okay.
Go to another team, find a low elite player, maybe Columbus, and once you found that low elite player, if you're on Columbus, Jordan Dumais. You can see he's lonely, he's 70, he's 21. He's a guy that you could get for absolutely no trade value. Go ahead and let's go ahead and throw them a 6 for Jordan Dumais. That probably won't go through. It's projected, so let's go ahead and just call them, ask them what they want. And there you go. There's a trade offer that we could send to Columbus for Jordan Dumais, a low elite winger for us. Ryan Johnson, a medium top 6 defenseman, means his potential is probably going to be an 80, 81 at best. And at worst, he's lower than that, in the high 70s. So at this point, I don't see any reason not to throw Ryan Johnson in the 7. For a guy that's got a low elite potential, elite meaning he can get above 88, 89, 90, he can get to that range. So honestly, I think it's a pretty fine swap. I'm going to bet on the future. He's going to be sent down to the minors.
That'd be so fair with Kane and Malkin.
Jordan Dumais. So we're not
Can't be us red as droppers now. That's insane. Okay, I'll take that.
We'll probably just replace Brendan Warren. So we're going to click the last thing, go to head coach preferred line. Okay, we didn't replace him exactly, but there he is on the 3rd line. We need to be giving him all the AHL ice time imaginable. So Carson Myers here is a guy that has exact bottom 6 potential. He is not throwing at all. Once you hit exact, you really stop throwing. It naturally becomes a matter of who you score.
41 years old, he's the oldest player on this crappy team besides me, Evander Kane and Holy.
Dumais up on the top line with Noah Hoffman and Ivan Roseanne. Most of these guys, young, 22, 21, medium top 6 potential. We want to give them as much ice time as possible as well. And Jordan Dumais as elite. We're obviously going to try and give him as much ice time as possible, like I mentioned. So he's now on the first power play line as well. It looks like the AI coach was smart enough to do that as well for us. We'd like to do that for the 4-on-4 power play. There he is already there, so you'd love to see it. The coach and I are on the same page. Penalty kill, maybe not. Don't want to put him on the penalty kill, maybe, but we want to make sure we give him as much ice time. He's a sniper, so he's going to hurt the team down here if I replace Brendan Warren. So I'm not going to do that. But we're going to do power play and even strength as much ice time as possible. And that's really what it comes down to for these guys. Now, sometimes you'll have guys that are allowed to play in the CHL. We take a look at the proposed trade screen again. We're going to go ahead and take a look at Buffalo Sabres defenseman Freddie Murka, and you're going to see he's in the CHL. So for a player that has CHL eligibility, you ideally want to leave them unsigned until you can give them as much ice time as possible. If you draft a franchise player, you can leave them unsigned for a year. They may or may not develop better that way, but I found that by not burning that year of the ELC, you would know one way or another how did they develop, right? Sometimes you draft a franchise player at 80 overall, you leave him in the minors, and then you sign her not the minors, you leave him in the CHL, you don't sign him to a contract. He then has become an 88, 89 overall rookie. And then, by the way, you still have 3 years of him making less than $1 million. So, a guy like Freddie Murka here, if you draft him and you go into post-trade and you can't find out where they are, like you can't add them to your roster or something, they're likely in the CHL. And what that means is when they're from the CHL to the OHL, the QMJHL, or the WHL, one of those 3 leagues I mentioned earlier. So, Murka is going to be spending the rest of the season at the CHL level, and we'll check in on the progress come the start of next season. But this also applies to players in the NHL. We can see Zach Benson here is a medium elite at just 20 years old. I want to get him as much ice time as I can with quality line mates. So him and Alex Tuck and Tage Thompson are going to be our first line. Those guys should hopefully put up a ton of points for us. We can see we're getting a minus here because of Jack Quinn, it looks like. The Sabres are an interesting force. Just in the air force, it's an 81. That's great for me.
This time, we found the answer. When creativity and AI merge, every gap is gracefully bridged. Subprojects. Dual timeline editing. Source and timeline preview editing. And your favorite features. The more gives you the freedom to immerse fully in your craft. Wondershare Filmora, powered by AI, and as an expert.
Better than Josh. Top 4, top 6 potential. I want to get those guys in a more balanced role and put them here with Norris in the front so we won't be completely out of place as well. So, looking at the blue line, you see Owen Power is playing with Rasmus Dahlin, and while in real life I don't know if I want that to happen, I think it's totally fine here. You've got Michael Kessel rated medium top 4, playing with another medium top 4, and I think it's a great second pairing. And then Matthias Samuelson, who's still got a little bit of potential at medium top 4, is going to play with Jason Franklin. I don't really have spots to Matthias Samuelson, but I'm going to try and play all these guys at the appropriate ice time, which is a big factor. You're also going to want to check in on their points, but we will do that later on. So let's go ahead and get back to where our scouts have returned with their first scouting report. So we've now officially made it to December 3rd. We're 8-16-2, so things aren't necessarily going well. And we're not too sure where that's coming from potentially. However, we can see that, Zach Benson's at 82. He's got 15 points in 26 games, and only is a -1, which is not too terrible. Yuri Kulik's a -13, which is really bad. We really don't want to see that. So we might be better served moving into the second line to the third line to play center for us. He plays center on the Sabres' first line. Yet EA doesn't give him a center rating, and they have 75 faceoffs for him. Either way, we can see that Zach Benson is looking very good for us. Owen Powell also looking very good for us as well. So the whole team seems to be developing kind of the way we want to. If we really want to see the progress reports and how people are actually progressing, we can head here to the progress report screen and see that Yuri Kulik has 11 modified, and what's huge is our +4 to puck control and natural growth. You can see his defensive awareness has gotten up, his shot blocking and stick checking have gotten up, so I know some of this may be due to this natural growth is due to our preseason setting. The strength, the body checking, the aggressiveness, the speed is preseason, but shot blocking and stick checking are not because of preseason. Shot power here, again, it's not because of our preseason. I chose the 5 which does puck control, which does offensive and defensive awareness, and then minus the speed. So you can see that reading up for puck control, awareness is the preseason development. But that is still important. We still want to get you guys offensive and defensive awareness. Those are the best scores that sit. But you can see his shot power, both his slap shot and his wrist shot, has naturally developed by 1. So he is growing very, very nicely. Same thing with Zach Benson here. You can see puck control and offensive awareness, but discipline, shot power as well. So things are looking good as far as their development. It's only 2 months into the season, so we can't expect too much. But there we go. Jordan Dumais, 13 attributes modified. I love to see something like that. A lot of it is more around growth. You can see his discipline, his poise, his offensive awareness is already developing. Shot blocks and stick checking, so a lot of it can be because of morale. Keep the guys happy, give him the ice time. That's going to help him grow even more. But he's become an even better skater, right? +1 speed, acceleration, balance. I didn't do anything with the AHL, so all of this natural growth is just natural growth out of Jordan Dumais. So don't be dissuaded if you can see a low elite player who's already 21 and is still 70. Well, he's now at 72 with the morale boost. He's going to get even better, and these guys are going to keep developing for us. We'll check in once again at the end of the season, but I wanted to show you guys that if you do these little things early in the season and you do it for the whole season, you just trust it, you got to commit to the development, your players will see positive growth. But as I said, it is December 3rd, so our scouts have returned from their first scouting mission and have come back with their first reports for us. So let's dive into our Russian scout here, the scout-specific players tab again. You can see that our scout recommendation is no longer these question marks, but we actually have recommendations from the scout. Meanwhile, I'm going to clear out all of this. There we go. We're done with the pre-assigned players, but let's go ahead and dive in and see what our scouts have on cover. You can see Kirill Komutov. Oh my God, why did I start with Russia? You can see there, we already know that they're 3 years away from the NHL. We've already found out their scheme fit, their personality. We've found out their weaknesses. They're small. Gee, really, thanks for the detailed scouting report there. We can see a little bit about their individual skills and whatnot. So, and their player style. We are slowly uncovering their potential, and this is where I like to really dive into the next strategy I like to do. It's flipping through all the players and seeing what we know about each player, right? So we don't know, we're not maxed out on anybody yet, so we're going to go through and just go ahead and get to maybe the trade deadline, February 15th, well, February 15th stuff, trade deadline, but we'll get that around Valentine's Day, right? Another 8 players, go ahead and scout those 8 players for me, and then we'll move on. So let's go ahead. Dive down here. I believe the OHL and WHL were stacked. Chow here is our best scout. So I wouldn't be surprised if we already know Ethan Beltets. Actually, we don't. You'll be able to see the next time we return they will have some of these players will have all of their scouting completely done. So we'll go ahead and jump to that point, and I'll show you guys where it makes the most sense. So I jumped the gun a little bit. It looks like if I just would have gone to Liga, Harrisburg here, Matt Harrisburg, is completely scouted. All we sent our scout-outs to do was scout their potential in comparison. Yes, they came back with playing style, they came back with strengths, we know his shooting is an A-, his puck skills are an A, we know everything about this guy, and his potential is medium, but he is 1 year away. We're not entirely certain about the team fit, but with the fact that he's a top player now, I'm less concerned about team fit when drafting players. But that's what we're doing. Matt Harrisburg has a full potential. You see the 4 bars next to the binoculars? That means he's done, which means we don't have to send our scout back out to scout him. And now you can see there's only 2 bars on, oh my god, I really should have started with USA. Jovan, Kristoff, Zunga. I actually butchered that. I'm so sorry to any Finns listening to this video, but please believe me, I tried my best. And there we go. So we're going to go ahead and scout all of these players. As you guys can see, the potential is not yet fully uncovered. You will have times where players further down the list are fully uncovered, which is why I like to find the first player that is fully scouted, go down to the next player, see if they're fully scouted, scout them, and then after that, I like to flip through until I find fully scouted players, go out. You can see I've highlighted over Cody Yarby here, and then I would just go back and fill in the blank. So that's how I like to do the most efficient way to determine if you're not going to double scout a player. You already know everything about it. Ladine, Vitale, you should know everything about these guys. The top 5 picks in the draft usually get filled in almost immediately for you. So you can see Henry Vitale is currently being scouted, so we're going to go ahead and bring them in. Stenberg here. See, Stenberg, though, we know we won't, so why bother? With Rohan Magon, anyway, this player, we will go ahead and scout that. But we skip Stenberg, we have them fully scouted, and then we'll just kind of flip through and, okay, yeah, that's enough players where we don't have the potential scouted, so I think we should go ahead and keep scouting everybody. But that helps you work your way down the list outside of the top 100 a little bit. And we'll go ahead and do this again and again and again, because you guys, I think this is just this point of how I like to find players that have already scouted, and then just kind of move on from there. Here we are, guys, at the end of season number 1, and we didn't make the playoffs, but that's not the goal of today's video. It's to develop our young players and take a step forward in the future. And you can see Zach Benson played 89 games. I don't know if that includes the preseason. I think it might. But he only played 82. He put up 50 points, but with a plus 24 on that top line, so not a lot of points. But with 16 attributes modified. And you can see here, guys, the morale, yes, is helping, but the deking, hand-to-eye, and passing grew by 2. Puck control grew by an additional few. Made more than what we did in the preseason. Discipline grew. Offensive awareness grew a little bit more. Shot power grew a ton for him. Right, you can see that this development happened a ton for a guy like Zach Benson. And we moved Gary Kulik down. He was probably still getting some power play time. And you can see that we saw his shot power go up. We saw him shot blocking and stick picking. He became a better defensive player. I think he gained 1 back in speed, which is tremendous to see. And then his physicality got better as well. So you can see the 2 guys that we focused on this season that were in the NHL did develop pretty nicely. And that's in-season growth. You're going to see more rewards from it with the off-season growth as well. But let's check in the system. And you can see Jordan Dumais up to a 74, so already growing 4 overall points in just 1 season. You can see that pretty much grows all across the board, plus 6 offensive awareness, which is a ton. He didn't get any better shooting the puck, but that's okay. He's already got a decent enough shot that, you know, maybe in a year or so he'll be a top player for us in a top 6 role. I mean, but 6 defensive awareness, like that's where it really counts. You can see his skating got better, his physicality got better. He's growing really, really nicely. Same thing with Noah Ostlund. 18 attributes improved. That's what that modified column stands for. So you can see discipline, offensive awareness, even poise. But you just give goalies playing time and give them good stats, and they'll grow. And the weird thing about a goalie is to get good stats, you need to have a good goalie. So it's pretty interesting. If you have a good team in front of them and they win a lot of games, if you have a coach that's going to prioritize defense, you're going to see a lot of good growth in your goaltending. So you can see Isaac Rosenick, another guy that can help you with growth. And we saw a lot of good natural growth from him. That's the kind of growth that will stay year over year. Now, a guy like Consta Helenius didn't see any growth, only played on that second line. So really not sure about that one. It's not obviously a guaranteed method. Progression in the NHL is always a toss-up, no matter what. But I'm showing you guys the best ways to put your guys in the best situations to grow for you here. And when you look at that, ladies and gentlemen, we end up winning the draft lottery. I never win the draft lottery when it comes to actually doing a franchise mode save. So winning it for you guys here is kind of tricky. But we can move up from 7 to 2, and I think that's great for us here. What I'd like to do is show you guys the draft board, which I think is a tool that I don't see enough people utilizing. I don't use draft interviews. I have here and there, but it's not something I spend too much time on. You can really find out how long it's going to take a player to make the NHL, though, which I find helpful. That can be the decision for a guy maybe 2 years away or 3 years away that generally tells you how their overall is. But let's go ahead and take a look at the draft board. You can see our projected picks here. We have the number 2 pick overall, but then we don't have a pick until the 7th pick of the 3rd round. We do have 2 picks in the 4th round, so maybe we can move around that way. But you can see here, I actually do like to see how is our forward strength based on the prospects and the trades we've made and signings and stuff like that. Who's grown and who's developed in our top 6 forwards right now? Neutral, thanks to Zach Benson, growing into a second line forward role. Junior Cooley is an 84, growing into that role pretty nicely. You can see that defenseman, well, we don't really need to prioritize defenseman. Hot Delaney has grown through time. Franchise potential is insane. Like, the potential can grow. The fact that his potential grew after the season he had is actually kind of absurd. You see Owen Power is now at 90 overall as well. Bo Myers is 86, Chester is 85, Samuels at 83, Bryce at 86. All of that defensemen grew a little bit. And then goaltending. Seems like starting goalie is a weakness for us, as it says. We've got decent depth in the org, right? Devin Levi is the goalie of the future, hopefully, and he'll develop. It looks like a little bit lacking in the starting goaltender right now. Probably get a little better there. But I'm not going to use the 2nd overall pick in the draft on that. And they are basically saying, Scott recommended Cade Clemmy. Cade Clemmy here is the guy that they want us to take. So we'll go ahead and jump into the draft, and I'll show you a bit of my decision-making process when it comes to draft day. So here we are in the draft. The Red Wings actually have the 1st overall pick, so it's a back-to-back Atlantic pick. Oh, look at that. 3 and a 4 Atlantic team. It's the first 4 picks. But here we go. Let's go ahead and just sim the pick there against Ladine. I think that one was kind of self-explanatory, and I'm kind of happy we didn't win it because it's another left-handed defenseman. Oh my god. No wonder why we won the lottery. It's a left-handed defenseman was the first overall pick. Darlene, Power, Sloan, Byron. Not first overall pick. But hey, look at that. I'm getting a 6'3" forward. Wow, this is exactly what the Sabres need. But he is a two-way forward. I'm not in love with two-way forwards, but as an NHL-ready player that plays like Mark Stone, A+ shot is great. I don't want another defenseman. The other guy that could potentially be in play for me here is Clayton Lots, 18-year-old sniper, also NHL ready. I think I like the idea of getting a sniper on this roster, a center sniper. The Sabres kind of need somebody like that. Tate Thompson is 27, and I think they just need another center sniper. But 6'3", Cade Clemmy, I think is kind of what the Sabres need, a two-way forward. I could go either way. I'm going to go ahead and go with the higher-ranked player. He's probably going to have a slightly higher overall. In fact, they might have the same ranked overall. I mean, A+ shooting for Cade here, A+ shooting for Lots, A puck skills, A minus senses, A- senses, A- skating, A- physical. Like you guys can see that Cade Clemmy is a little bit better. Just in his attitude right now. So we're going to go back and make him the size certainly helps. 79 overall, immediately two-way forward, as we expected. And then the Senators get Lots, a 78 overall, so basically the same player. 78 overall, you can see their stats already, because we have positive off, which is super nice for analyzing the prospect. You can see a very well-rounded player here in Cade Clemmy. I don't know if he's ever going to be a superstar, like putting up dominant numbers. But at this point, with Benson and whatever, and just based on your team to make that decision. But I decided to go that guy in the direction of the two overall. But let's go ahead and take a look at the draft class, because we should have a good amount of detail on a lot of players because we prioritize potential. So if we wanted to, we could jump back into the round and take a look at some of these guys, but they're busts. And I like to avoid busts. I don't overly draft gems, but busts are not something I like to go after. But if we really want to go after a defenseman, Chase Reed here, right? We know that Chase Reed's a medium top 4, 3 years away, so a pretty solid overall coming out of the gate. If we really wanted to go after Noah Ta'amu, we could. I doubt that he's going to be meeting late. The reason I say that is because when you see a lead with 2 bars, that's likely going to change. I believe it can move once or twice based on, so the amount of bars you're missing is the amount you can move. So McLean here is probably going to be a top 9 forward because that is the potential rating just above 6. So it goes franchise, elite, top 6 forward, top 9 forward, bottom 6 forward. And I believe AHL top 6 is just below. So I'm going to guess Cash Alger East is also a medium top 9 forward because it goes AHL top 6, bottom 6, top 9 forward there. So you can imagine that these guys at the end of the round are most likely going to be that top 9 forward. And you'll see that Carter Stevens here, he's medium top 9, so that just kind of, these guys are all kind of grouped together and lumped together like that. But now we're going to go ahead and click the left stick and sort by potential. You can see we didn't identify any bona fide medium elites. However, what we did find is a low elite defensive defenseman who was 17 years old. Now, this is the guy I am absolutely going to pin to my draft board, so I do not forget to take him at pick 127. Let's go ahead and take a look at our draft board, and this is where I think it becomes super, super nice to see. You can see with our 4th round pick here, pick 32, the Central Scouts rankings are in the high 120s. Here you can see the Central Scout rankings are in the 90s, so that means we can go ahead and pass on that low elite player in the 3rd round, should you want to, and take him in the 4th round because he's not going to jump at that many spots, right? He's ranked 127. Our picks are both before those two, but I'd like to pick one earlier at the 2 points just to make sure I get the guy without worrying about it there. So that is essentially how I use what we did in all that scouting to identify these late round exact low elites, or having known for a fact these low elites are the 4 bars. And then maybe find some other guys to take a shot on. Maybe we take a shot on Alvin Irwin here with our 3rd round pick if he's still there. Or maybe some of these other guys, we take a shot on them as well. So let's go ahead and just simulate our pick here at 71. Let's see, did anybody go? I don't know if anybody that we were just looking at went, any of those low elites. Don't get fooled by the 1 bar low elite that's going to take somebody that can drop a ton. But as you can see, these 3 bar low elites are still there, so I believe that we should have maybe a low top 6 player on our hands with a guy like Randy Gargiulo. We can see we don't really know any defensemen or forwards exactly what they are. So let's go ahead and take Gargiulo here, and I think maybe we might have a top 6 player on our hands. And as a matter of fact, he is staying at that low elite. So look at that. We get a medium elite 2-way forward left wing in the 1st round in our 2nd overall pick. And then we follow it up with a low elite 57 power forward. And this player, rookie player, we select him, he played in the NHL. So we'll let them continue to develop there in the NHL. We'll leave them unsigned because they're overall just a little bit too low to give them a ton of ice time at low elites. They're usually one of those guys who let simmer around to the next couple seasons, right? Until you have to sign them. So let's go ahead with our 4th round pick here. We didn't get too far through some of these previews just because there was a lot, and we didn't shift around the scouts, and we could get a lot more done if you fired on your pro scouts. I decided not to just for some sort of a little bit of realistic thing. But at 103 overall, we're going to see yes! We have 3 low elite or 3 elite players on our roster through our first 3 picks. This is the relay talent, and these guys are going to have, I mean, are you kidding me? The low elite Coles is going to have way more value than our 4th round pick ever did. So let's go ahead and go and pick 128. See what we can get here at the end of the 4th round. We don't know anything about any of these players. We do know that Rats is 2 bar low elite, so could be top 6, could be a top 9 player. So that could be an interesting avenue to end up taking. We could go after Donovan Nystrom here, who's a 3 bar low elite. I may wait on that one. That one's a bit more of a sharp throw at 193. Maybe use our 6th round pick on that. The medium top 9 forward here, Omar Merrick, is never going to be anything too special for you. I like to maybe take a swing on some players, maybe a goalie that's got some potentially take a look at the remaining goalies. By potential, get 2 bar medium elite tiers. That could be a medium starter or probably a fringe starter. So I doubt that McMillan is going to be anything for us here. We can take a shot on him just to take the shot. Maybe we get lucky, but I highly doubt he's going to be anything higher than a fringe starter. But just for the sake of the video, I'm going to go ahead and take Isaiah McMillan here and see exactly what type of player they are. at the end of the fourth round. They are a medium fringe starter, like I said, so more often than not, they drop down from where your scouts believe they are, especially when they're in this part of the draft. But at the end of the fourth, medium fringe starter, not the end of the world. We're going to go ahead and jump to pick 135 now. Oh, look at that. A low lead. Holy smokes. Sometimes you're able to just take that shot and look at that guy here. Able to get four elite players, I should say, with 5 picks. Like, that is phenomenal return on investment. And then we're going to pick 164 here. And we know that we were looking at another player here. It was Donovan Nystrom, who's right around this range. So 3-bar low lead could be a low lead, could be a top 6 forward. So we're going to go ahead and make the pick there, and they do end up being a low top 6 forward. But a low top 6 forward still has some potential to be in the mid to upper 80s, at 85, 86 kind of range, 84, right? You can be 83 to 86, somewhere in that range, right? I'll actually take that out of our 6th round pick. Now, we're going to have to give a nice time when he plays ready, right? After maybe 1 year, maybe 2 years, we don't see any development in juniors. We sign him to a contract and play in the AHL for as much time as we can. But look at that guy, he's a 6th round pick to get a top 6 potential. It's honestly pretty crazy. And then we keep going here. Let's see, can we stack more wins? We got 2-bar medium top 9. That could be a bottom 6 or an AHLer. A low top 4 could be a medium, or could be a top 6, or could be an AHL top 2. We don't really know.
Shit, he proved 87. Fuck, okay.
Bottom 6 forward could jump up to be a top 9 forward. Would be probably our best case scenario. Or there's Stroumboulopoulos here, who's two medium backup, could be an AHL starter or AHL fringe starter, I believe. Or I think it would go down to AHL fringe starter and all the way up to medium starters. We can take another shot on a goalie, but for now, I don't know. I think I'm going to pass on Stroumboulopoulos, despite the name being phenomenal. We're going to go ahead and take Albert Finley here, potentially getting a top 9 forward. It could be medium bottom 6, or they could end up being an AHL top 6 forward, but it is the end of the 6th round. And they're going to be exactly a medium bottom 6 forward, so really what those guys are going to become are your 78 overalls, your 77 overalls, guys that fill up the bottom of your roster when you're out of picks. And there we go. We're out through the draft. So let's go ahead, guys, get to the start of next season to see just how our players have grown thanks to the playing time and development we gave them in the season. And here we are, ladies and gentlemen, the start of the very next season in the NHL season. Zach Benson now up to an 88 overall. We're going to keep doing what we were doing, keeping him on that line, and maybe Jason Zucker must have had a great year because he's up to an 87, so he must have scored a lot of goals or something. I guess. I don't know why he's so happy right now or so good, but hey, 87 overall, I'll take it. Jack Quinn grew for us nicely. Josh Jones, not as much. We didn't prioritize his growth nearly as much as we were looking at Zach Benson and Gary Cooley with them to be to an 85, plus matching the scheme fit. You'll love to see that on Power to a 90. Kesselring and Fire with an 86 to 85. It's a beautiful sight to see. And then if we take a look at the AHL, and we can see that Noah Ostlund has grown to an 82 overall. Jordan Dumais up to a 76 overall. So remember, we parted ways with an AHL level defenseman and a 7. He's already up to a 76, and he's got more time to grow at just 22 years old. We can go ahead and slap him on that top line again. Playing with Ostlund and our first round pick, Cade Cooley, who I guess they ended up signing. I wouldn't recommend doing that. I turned on auto signing just so I can get through it and figure out the real roster and not have to just monkey around with it too long. But as you can see, that was an absolute slam dunk to the ground, and our players have grown and developed exactly how we want them to be. Now getting +3 with Thompson and Benson on that top line. We let Alex Tuck walk, so be it. We brought back Bacon Krebs, it looks like, and Jason Zucker, Norris, Quinn. Now, the forward core is not amazing. I didn't make any moves like that, but you imagine making some trades for some better players, maybe getting rid of a Josh Norris who probably wasn't going to grow anyway, and on a big contract for the quality of the player you got. Right, you moved him, maybe you moved with Jeff Quinn or something, or maybe you moved Bo Byron for a forward. Anyway, we can talk about how the roster looks, but we did set out to grow Noah Ostlund, Jordan Dumais, Zach Benson, and Gary Cooley. Noah Gosselin's now up to an 82 overall. Jordan Dumais grew 6 overall points at the start of the next season.
Volatility doesn't wait. Stay ahead of the market with companies trading into West Trade. Let me show you a free freezer upside by building multi-leg trades. If you can find your winning strategy, which the West Trade gets 1 month of free off.
Introducing imaginary celebrations.
You can't build a dynasty through the draft alone. You have to be savvy with your contracts and cunning in the trade market. Today, we're talking about some trade strategies and contract guidelines to help build your dynasty. How's it going, everybody? And welcome to Franchise Builders University. Today, guys, we are touching on contracts and trades. I think those are two massive points that people are often asking me questions on. And in the last one, guys, we talked about how to draft and develop players. This is that next step. Once you draft your players, once you develop your players, how do you acquire those missing pieces that maybe you couldn't draft? Maybe you couldn't find a number one pairing defenseman. Maybe you couldn't find a third pairing or a third line center to shut down the opposing team. And maybe you just are in a bad contract situation depending on whatever team you started with. So today, we're going to go through some of my general contract guides for you guys, as well as ways to trade, and just kind of know the trade market in NHL, and understand what some of the terminology the other teams are going to give you.
His contract, that's fine. He should be really good anyway, along with his defensive partner.
Start a franchise mode save with the team. In this instance, we are the Anaheim Ducks. I like to go down here to this manage view contracts tab. It's under the manage contract group. But here you go, you can see everything as far as contracts for our team. We can take a look at some of the guys in the system maybe that are coming up. But really, I like to prioritize the main roster first and foremost. And I like to generally go from the back. So what that means is I like to start with my goalie situation and then look from there. As you can see, we do have two pretty quality goalies. 85 Lucas Dossel, 83 Peter Borovic, and yes, you can see that Peter Borovic will be expired. This UFA means an unrestricted free agent. I'll show you an RFA in just a second here. What that means is an unrestricted free agent, if you don't sign them to a contract before free agency opens, they are free to sign with whatever team they want or whatever. And there's no compensation for you. You've got no way of stopping it. The only way to stop a player who's a UFA from making it to free agency where other teams can bid on that is by giving them a contract for that July 1st deadline. If we go ahead and take a look here at the defenseman real quick, we can see that Olin Zellweger and Vintikov here are RFAs. What that means is in the contract re-sign phase, you have an option to qualify offer. And I'll go ahead and show that here when we get to that stage. I'll probably leave more in more here. I will just qualify him as an RFA. But essentially what that means is if you qualify a player, they have the option of accepting that as their contract. It'll generally be 1 year and about $1 million or so, depending on who it is, right? The situation can change, but for the most part, it'll tell you what the cost is going to be if they do accept it. And sometimes if you string them on long enough, maybe it's the start of next season, they will accept it. I don't recommend that though. I highly recommend if it's a player that's an RFA, they have to be a young enough player to be an RFA. I believe it's anybody younger than, I think, 27, like 26-year-old, that they could be an RFA. On that point, and then by the time they get to UFA, they're generally in their prime and towards the latter half of their career. But as an RFA, you can negotiate with them just the same way you do with the UFA. You just get those rights to them if you qualify them. If you don't come to an agreement by the time that re-sign phase before July 1st happens, on July 1st, they are a qualified RFA, meaning if a team wants to sign them, they have to give up the compensation required. And you can see the compensation here. If we go down to offer sheet compensation, when you try to sign a player in free agency that has the RFA tag.
We started like this last season and we missed playoffs. We're not missing the playoffs this year for sure.
This is the compensation. So as you can see, under $1.5 million is essentially no fix required. You can just get that player if the other team doesn't match it, which is something else I should mention. If you do qualify the player, they make it to free agency as a qualified RFA, and another team offers them a contract. You have the option to either match that contract, assuming you have the cap space to do so, or you can let the player walk and receive the compensation. So let's say that some team offered Vintikov $7.1 million. That would require them to give the upcoming years first, second, and third. And maybe I'm like, well, Mitchell hasn't been developing as well as I wanted to, and it might be worth it if I was going to trade him for a first, second, and third round pick. I think I'd be happy with that. So you go ahead, don't match it, or feel like, listen, 7.1 is a steal. I made this trade right now. I got rid of one of my goals, and I got freed up $2.5 million that I needed, and boom, I can qualify him an error. I can match it. That's the benefit of having an RFA. You can keep them on the same contract offered by an opposing team. But if we take a look at Ravens here, I don't think that there are any RFAs. You hold the right figure or opportunity to go ahead and sort through all of these. They're actually handy. I do actually like these that EA added these. But you can go ahead, if you just don't want to worry about compensation, just go to UFA. You click on RFA. There are none at the time because it is the start of the season, but I will show you guys. Hopefully there's going to be some RFAs for us in free, when we get to that point. But for now, I want to touch on contracts in general. And I like to look at my teams from the blue line, or from the crease house. Crease, blue line, center ice, right? Goalies, defenseman, forward. So I know that Peter Mrazek is expiring, and well, I probably don't want to re-sign him because we have Lucas Dostal, who is the starter for lockdown. Depending on what Mrazek wants, it's probably going to be too much for what I would consider the right amount for a goalie. And what is the right amount? And a lot of you that click on this video are probably asking, what is the right amount for each position group? So we will just go ahead and start with the forwards. Now, if you guys never in percentages on the count, I will translate it into starting year number 1 values. But just go ahead and know that if you go ahead and offer a contract extension or offer a contract, you can see the salary cap percentage over the right. So you guys don't have to worry about doing that later on. As the cap goes up in game, it will adjust that salary cap percentage over the right. So we'll start with the superstar, the franchise elite first line player. We don't have any of those on the team right now, but I'll just quickly shift over to Boston. You can see David Pastrnak is a perfect example of this. He's making $11.25 million. My ideal range for a franchise player is $10.5 million to $14.5 million, which is 11 to 15% of the cap. When you get into the teams of percentages of the cap, that's when it really starts to get dicey. You've got to make sure that that is one of your 4 players. You are going to win a cup because of that player, not because that player helps somebody do it. No, that player is capable of carrying you to a cup. So when you identify some of these mid-90s, low-90s players, we'll take a look at the Buffalo Sabres, right? You've got...
And your game, but he's going left this year. What the hell's going on with him?
But I would not consider Tate Thompson somebody that is going to win me a cup. And 89 overall, I think he is a great first runner. I think his contract is a bit of a steal, but these are the guys you're expecting to get 70 to 85, maybe 90 points up, right? Those first liners that are really good, but they're not your franchise depending on the roster, right? These Brandon, Troy Terry type players, even Mason McTavish here. I think these guys are great second liners, but this is a dicey bucket because these players can ask for a ton of money because they maybe have a really good year. I do not recommend going over 8% for these players. I think 5.5 to 8% would make sense, which is 5.5 to 7.5 million against cap. If a guy is going to ask you for 10% of the cap or 9% of the cap, we'll start including like 9 million year 1 as far as what he asked for. I think that's a great candidate in the off-season. If you can RFA him or maybe trade him at the deadline or before the season. For example, Leo Carlson here. I trust Leo Carlson even mediumly 84 overall. I think the sky is the limit for him. But let's say he wasn't just really grown and he was asking for his 8.3 million. I think this would be a great time to talk to Leo Carlson, take the trade value I can get back for him, and we'll talk about that in a minute here, but getting rid of those guys that probably are going to cap out at 84, 85, 86, right? And they're asking for, over 8% of the cap. Next, the third liner bucket, this is generally where I can see people overpay for like favorites or maybe somebody was a second liner, they get bumped down to the overall and they want a new contract. That's usually the guy that I consider phased out of my team in air quotes. That guy that was making $6 million, no longer really fits the bill. Like think of a guy like Chris Kreider here, $6.5 million. He's been strong, still maybe pushing it for me. I think I could make it work if he was making $5 million. But Chris Kreider here, let's say I go out and I do acquire one more forward. So then we have Brandon, Terry, and Matt Goldberg, and then McTavish, Carlson, and Gauthier, which pushes Kreider down here to the third line. Obviously, $6.5 million is really high. for a third liner, but I think anybody making above about 4.25, 4.5, I think that kind of player is just making too much. And that's what equates to 2.5 to 4.5% of the cap. And then finally, your fourth liners down here, they're generally these types of guys that are making about 1 to 1.5 million, something in the decimal point, right? 0 point something. That's perfectly fine. Like Harkins here, Johnson, they're not great players. Haley is probably overpaid if I was going to consider him a fourth liner. It's not egregious. I think anything under 2%, or right now it's 1.75 million. Hopefully this all makes sense to you guys on that. Maybe if you want, I can put it in the comment section or something. But come back to this spot in the video, write it down, take a screenshot, do something. But here are what I would consider the ideal ranges for forwards.
Finding, drink and ride. Find up and after purchasing it, the redeemed on only purchase you one. Earn up to 4% cash back. The CNC dividend visa and gift card.
Next, we'll talk about defensemen, and the first category we'll talk about are those North-American elite franchise defensemen that are putting up a point per game, making more, and the defensemen put up crazy amount of points, 90 plus, maybe even 100 plus points in a season. Those guys, get paying those guys. You can't find those guys very easily. One thing you notice is that years in the future, we do tend to run out of quality defensemen, so putting together a really stacked or really just solid three pairs becomes really, really tricky. So paying your franchise defensemen, I think is worth it. And I think they getting the same treatment as our franchise forwards at 11 to 15%, at 10 million to 14.5 million, something like that. I don't want to go too crazy here, go 16, 17% on any player. I think by the time you're paying almost a fifth of the cap for one player, you need to ice 21 players a night, right? So you got 80% of the cap for just 24 players. It just doesn't, the math doesn't matter. So when I'm capping it at 15%, some players may ask for more, unless they're basically Wayne Gretzky. I need to go that much higher. Next, we'll talk about your standard first pairing defenseman and your typical 70-point wingman, your 50 to 65 point guy. I think that's where you want to go. You ride or die, you shotgun with your franchise guy. I think he can make 6 to 8.
Wow, shit. That kid's been really fucking good.
Those kinds of guys, if you can find that pretty regularly. David Trouba, not really what I consider one of those guys, but not interested in extension. We'll touch on that in the second year. Next, for the second pairing defenseman, your middle pairing defenseman, you want to come in the $4, $5, $6 million range, which is 4 to 5 to 6%.
That lost his counter right there.
$100 million on the cap, as it goes up, it's paid. They're your solid guys. They're kind of a diamond up. I think Brian goes through this here. You can find guys with an 84 overall rating who are making this $4 million pretty much everywhere. I think that's a really, really solid, bang for your buck. Kind of equally set by the value you get there in your contract. You start pushing above the $6 million range. I think you start to make questions. I think that player is worth it. Maybe they're expensive defensemen, and they aren't the big cut down. They're always a massive plus. You see them buying checks and they grow, and they put up 43 points a season, but they're one of the guys that is like a glue guy and makes your team like that. You found that when they were there and they're playing well, they're a plus, and they're percent. Maybe you put up on $6 million, and you're talking about a guy that rides shotgun with the training like that. But then finally, your third pair defenseman, you want to keep it in the range here of Ellis. You want to keep it in the sub $2.5 million, right? You don't want to really touch $3 million for these guys. I think that's overpaying for guesters. We go from $4 million to the floor really for your middle pairing. If you get your middle pairing guys are less, I hope you do it right. Like the floor on these ranges is not like, oh,
Jesus,
this guy makes this much.
Come on, guys.
Second player. No, if you can get your star center for a really, really good deal. Like
on here.
Thompson in the Buffalo Sabres.
There's a wins.
$1 million less than what I recommended if your standard first liner. Yeah, that's a really good deal to do that. But in order to save money, you really want to go for $2 million or less. I like to err more on the side of like 1 point something, even 1.9. It feels better to me than 2.0. So that's usually the range I like to do. That's 1 to 2% of your best there. Finally, in goalies are a little bit fluky. I've always found them to be a very, very tricky situation, even for myself, to value what I will need to pay and what I should pay him, or if I could move on from. If I have the top 5 goalies in the league, something in the low mid 90s, that a league starter in their stats back that up, I'm willing to pay them over $8 million, 8.5 to even 11, right? 9 to 11.5. I think when you start going over, 10 to 11%, anything above that, when you start to leak into the 12%, you probably should save that money for your forwards, particularly, and maybe your defenseman. I think you can then move on to that goalie if you ask them for a crazy amount, and you can probably find, the 9th best goalie in the league will give you a good amount of similar performance, and you'll save about $4 million, which, as we've discussed, is a solid build pairing defenseman, or could be that third line shutdown center that we've been talking about, that guy that you want to get. If you're just looking at an average starter, like a guy like Lucic here, I think 5 to 7 million is the sweet spot for that. I think, most cup-winning goaltenders are going to be in this range, right? Most teams that win the cup have goalies get paid this much, and they're usually around at the list. Again, middle, maybe upper 80s, pushing upper 80s. That's your average starter. I think 5 to 7% of the count, totally fine there. If you've got some backups, I don't recommend going above $2 million for your backup. It's really a big issue. Maybe go above 2, but your backup to me shouldn't really make $3 million. They should be making 1, maybe 2.0. I wouldn't go much higher than that. That's about 2% of the maximum for your backup. If you can find plenty of goalies, even in free agency, I could probably find one right now. That's a pretty decent backup goaltender for us. If we take a look here, look at this, 81 overall. So we'd be dropping 2 overall points to sign Jones, Martin Jones here. I know he's 35. You didn't want to get somebody a little bit younger, go with Malcolm Subban at 80. But these guys don't even make $1 million a year. It is an absolute steal. They'll give you serviceable play. If you've got a quality starter, you're going to ride the starters for 50, 60 games a season. You'd really only be looking at 30, 20 games for your backup, which can make a difference in the long run, so don't deprioritize the backup goalie entirely. But I would say that backup goalie is the least valuable position to me, which is why I'm willing to spend the least amount of time and money on this position. So now that we have our guidelines for what we want to give each role on our team, let's talk about extensions, and especially when it comes to these young player extensions. We'll talk about Liam Carlson and Cutter Jones today. I don't know exactly what they're going to be asking for. We're going to do this on the fly, but you'll get my thought process behind it. So the good news for us is they do want an extension. When I say that's good news is because they generally won't ask for crazy prices and they're much, much more willing to negotiate. So, what I like to do, I don't really go into the negotiations. You end up potentially putting something that maybe you don't want to try, maybe you didn't want to try, you end up pissing them off, and then you've just lost the negotiation ability with that player. So I like to jump right into offer contract extensions. And this to me is a red flag. Not so much the fact that I think Dale Carlson is not going to grow, but the fact that he only wants 3 years, I don't like that. He's 84. He's medium elite. He's just 20 years. He just turned 20 years old. He just got out of the teenage years. He's already a quality middle 6 player for me. Probably going to be a second line center at least by the end of the season. And that should tell us that 5.5, 7.5 is about right. Now, he'll probably end up being a first liner, so I don't mind the $8.3 million that he's looking at here. Obviously, we love the contract. This is a great deal, and by the time he's 23 years old, there's a high chance I think he's going to be in the 90s. He might be one of my star players. So that's how you want to assess these players. Some players that can grow obviously are going to ask for shorter term because they can get paid again and make twice this much in 3 years, depending on the cap situation. The first thing I want to do with a guy like Leo Carlson is go to the maximum amount of years and see what he's going to ask for. He wants $10.3 million. And if I believe that Leo Carlson can turn into that elite first-line player, I'm absolutely going to match that, right? As you can see, as I take the years, the player ask column, which is just to the right here, right in the middle, more, he wants a contract that matches his initial asking, so you may have to give him a little bit more. But if you go ahead and give him a no movement clause, because I don't plan on trading Leo Carlson. If he's making $10.5 million, no movement clause, I think we're totally fine there. The clauses. The clauses. And I know a lot of times, the real life teams have given out some pretty bad clauses. But let's just do my best to explain what this means. The no movement clause means you cannot trade him and you cannot waive him. He's basically locked to your team unless you convince him to waive his no movement clause. There is a feature if you go to try to trade him, it'll ask you would you like to start negotiation or if you can start a conversation. And you would do that just hope that maybe the low percentage chance actually hits. I don't like to give out no movement clauses unless I know it's a guy like Leo Carlson. And as you can see at the bottom, at 8 years, only 2 years of his contract has been this no movement clause is coming in. Years 7 and 8. He's going to be 26 or 27, maybe 28 at that point, depending on his birthday. I don't know when it is, but happy birthday, Leo. Maybe he'll be 28. I don't plan on trading a 28-year-old Leo Carlson. And by the time I got to that point with Leo Carlson, the cap is going to skyrocket. The cap is going to be up way higher than the 95. So this 11% is going to get cheaper and cheaper and cheaper every year. And we'll probably leak into the 8% range by the time this contract expires, and that's how I know I have a value. I know that I'm looking at a franchise elite player that I'm paying the standard first liner for. This is the guy that's going to win me a cup, and I'm paying him like he's a secondary option. And I've heard it a lot. Now, why do you pay the players now when, you could just give them, you could save, like Greg, you could save $2 million by just giving them a 3-year deal. Just give them a 3-year deal, and then figure it out then. The problem is, he's going to ask for more than $10 million in 3 years. In 3 years, Leo Carlson, my hope is a 90-plus overall player who's winning trophies, putting up a ton of points, and maybe he's already gotten us to the Stanley Cup. I think he's going to be asking for more than $10 million when the cap goes up a lot year over year because the NHL just announced that it's going to go up quite substantially over the next 3 years, and I think that itself. But even if it doesn't, it'll still go up. So as he continues to ask for a percentage of the salary cap, that percentage always will stay the same, right? So 11% now of $95 million is going to be cheaper than 11% of $110 million. So that's why I like to just get things out of the way now, because in year 3, I'll be probably just looking at a steal. So we're going to go ahead and add the no movement clause just to increase his current offer of interest. He wants the organization to hedge fund wants to extend his contract. But as you can see, I like to be one of those top 2 cards. And this no movement clause only kicks in for 2 years. The no trade clause is basically a clause that you could waive him. You can't trade him, right? Can't trade him still, but you can waive him. You can send him down to minors and maybe swing playing him or something like that. With the modified no trade clause, you can go ahead and give him a full or reduced, and it just impacts the number of teams on the no trade list. You can see the number of teams. It's 12 teams and then 8 teams, so I do 30%. If I do full, then I do 25% and 8 is 8, so it's the same every year. So just the modified no trade clause. No movement clause, they is the modified no trade clause. I don't really use this one if I'm going to be honest. If I'm going to give him a no movement clause, I'm just going to give him a no movement clause. You can see the no movement clause. It's a full bar for optimal for him. And like I said, he can veto moves and like get the 14 no trade list and those that he can trade him. So that essentially is what the clause here is. We do a modifying no trade clause, which I do like to sprinkle into my contract because it does up their how much a player likes the contract. Like 75% here would still give me 8 teams to potentially trade him to if I wanted to trade him. It just doesn't move it enough. So I'm going to go ahead and give Leo Carlson a full no movement clause, 8 years, $10.5 million, and that's how I would look at this. I'm looking at him like a franchise first liner, and maybe he's not. But I have 6 years to figure out if he gets there. And before no movement clause kicks in, I could end up trading him if he's not that player. It's not enough to move a contract of $10.5 million. There's plenty of players that are going to make that, and as the cap goes up, this could be a lot easier to stomach for other teams. So we're going to go ahead, offer him that extension. I don't think he can accept it right away. He doesn't, right? So let's go ahead and look at Hunter Gauthier. A year older, slightly different player. What does he want? I mean, it's for slightly less, but same terms. So we're going to go through the same strategy. He's asking for 11.6. Now, I'm not too sure if Hunter Gauthier is going to be my franchise player. And what's the difference, right? What makes him different? You can see he's got no X factors, and he's a year older. So I'm less confident in the projection. And I still think he could be a great player for us. Don't get me wrong, but maybe I do end up taking that 3 years, $7.7 million and seeing what happens. And it's totally up to you to trust your gut. This is the part that a guideline, a grid, something like I showed earlier, doesn't always take into effect. You've got to trust your gut, and that's the human element of this kind of thing. If I don't love to give very structured rules, like you need to do this, you need to do this much, or you can only do the reframe. I don't like to do that because there's a human element to this, and it helps you to learn the things that I'm talking about. These videos are just meant to help you guys get started off the line and learn basic tips that have really helped me enjoy the game the most. If you find things that contradict what I say and it makes it more fun or more comfortable, by all means, run with it. But what I'm going to do here is probably not sign Hunter Gauthier just yet. I may wait to see the end of the season, see how he performs. If he performs well, we may ask for more. But for now, I don't think we're going to come to a deal that's going to make us both happy. As you can see, he wants like a lot of money, and I don't know if I'm really willing to give him 4 years and $8 million either. That's probably a more optimal deal, but as you can see, by the time he gets to year 5, he then becomes a UFA. So at 4 years, he could expire via RFA, but then slash RFA. If players eventually, as you can see, will expire as a UFA rather than a RFA. But what happens when a player does not want an extension? We can see that Traxo Lewis here, 35, 84 overall, does not want an extension, makes $4 million. We go ahead and offer a contract extension. We can see that the organization bar is really, really low. So this is an area where I do like to sometimes start negotiations. If I can get him to, if I can turn him on the organization, which is 50 cans, then maybe I can sell him on it. If not, I'm not too hard pressed to watch Drago Lucas walk out the door. He was asking for $5.7 million for 2 years. As you guys know, that's pushing it to the upper limits of what I'd like to pay my second-pair defenseman. The difference here is Radko Gudas is 35. He's not going to be hanging on to this overall too much longer. In fact, he's going to start playing. If I could get him for 1 year at a cheaper deal, maybe a 1 year, $4 million extension, to see if that's what he's on, we'll see. But we'll try charming it, and it is going to work. So we're going to go ahead and just end the conversation. And it is going to hopefully boost his liking of the organization too much. I didn't spend much time in there. But as you can see, us finding a deal for Randall Hughes is probably not a best bet right now here. I'm not going to put money in the fact that I'm going to come to an agreement with Randall Hughes. If we enter negotiations, we might be able to talk it down. If he likes it, we'll just go to King Topic. We'll give him a 1 year deal, ideally. And then he wants 5.7. We'll negotiate it. Yeah, so this is why I don't necessarily love to negotiate. But because we might get locked into it here. But if I can get him for credit by $1.5 million, I think we're done. And yeah, he's not a fan, right? He didn't want to cut his salary by $1.5 million. So we're going to offer extension now. He's even less happier about the contract. Previously, now he's fully happy about the contract. Okay, whatever. I don't like these negotiations back in the future because it's a little thing. But Radko Gudas at 35 is a player that, hey, am I contending? Are we really winning the cup this year? Do I really want to think that this score, led by Troy Terry and Mikael Granlund? Is that Mikael Granlund? Yeah, it is Mikael Granlund. 87, 86, and 85 on my top line. Do I really think that's the moment of winning things go? No, I do not. In no way, shape, or form do I think that makes sense. And we'll probably see the same thing in Truba. I mean, Truba being 31 and 85. I don't love the money. He loves the contract, doesn't love the organization. He's another guy that I could see myself getting rid of. Ideally, I'd get rid of just one of the two because we take a look at our line. We pretty much deplete our blue line really quickly. Oh, yep, yeah, let's take a look. Oh my god. If we go to defense here, you can see that if we trade both Truba and Gudas, we're kind of shoving Zellweger and Minkoff up above where I think they would probably prefer to play, where I prefer to play them. I think maybe Zellweger would be the guy who would move up for Truba, but hey, we get a +5 between those two. So if we trade Gudas, we can play Minkoff and Zellweger together and get a +5. I think that's perfectly fine. So let's now jump into the trade section of this video. And one of my favorite features about trading, guys, is the find trade button. So we'll go ahead here and just take a look. I love this so much because it just saves so much time. And if somebody that doesn't like to, maybe spend too much time on any one save, you like to get through, get in, get out, it does make things a lot easier. Now, as you can see, Gudas has that modified no trade clause. So if we click the right trigger, or not the right trigger, the right stick, and we scroll down to the contract status, contract info, you can see the tradable teams. Like you get a 10-team no trade list. So these 22 teams, 5 people to trade, which is actually not too bad. I think it's totally fine. I don't know if the teams are on it, but for now, we're good. So I'm going to go ahead and push next. Or A, I'm going to select it and then push the left bumper. To push triangle to find trade is your trade block if you really cared about it. Right now, all I care about is seeing what teams are going to be willing to offer. A second and a third is great. A medium top 6 forward and a third, interesting. Appleton could be interesting if I really wanted another forward. Same thing with Copper, those guys do. The second and a third. So we get the value of Bradford with this. It's about a second and a third. So Kevin Hayes and a third. We'll just start with this Carolina Hurricanes trade here. So let's say that instead of a second and a third. Third, I'm going to push to see if I can get their next year's first for Random. And here are the trade value. It's a second and a third there. You can see it's not, if we're just going to try to eyeball it, which is the only way you can do it, we're probably not going to be able to get there first. And we'll talk about what the green and the red means in a second. But right now, I'm just going to try and propose Random Boost for a first. I highly doubt this is accepted. If it is, I'm going to take it and we're going to pivot in this video. But no.
81 ready. Fuck. Okay, yeah, 19 points. Okay, that's pretty good actually. He used to be replacing Malcolm on the second line then.
Soundpass Kids presents Roblox with evident confetti that flows on the black light.
Trade rejected. Gotta be honest with you, Carolina's not thrilled to part ways with what you were at the center way. So as we see that text, we know that Carolina is not particularly interested in trading away their first. As you can tell, it was white text, it's not red text. What that means is the red text is things the other team is okay with giving up, interested in giving up. Basically, if you call them, they're willing to work the deal out, and you just kind of meet in the middle somewhere. But the white text, you are going to naturally have to overpay more for a player that they, or a player or asset, I should say, that they have no interest in getting rid of. And the trade block, their block is well enough, but the value you have on the table is too far off. But that's
Crazy shit, okay.
Who is green, we want Gudis, but the value is not there. So you're either going to have to add more or ask for something else. So we go ahead here and just throw back on the second, and then we'll also throw on 2/3 just to see how much closer it is. They offered me a second and a third to start, as you guys remember. But now we're negotiating. I want to give up, or I want to get an extra. I want a 2/3. I want a second and 2/3 for Gudis. We proposed this trade. I doubt it's going to go through, but I'm hoping that we see a little bit different text. And here it is. This is perfect. This is exactly the trade I was hoping to see. Oh, man, I'm happy that worked out for me. The trade is rejected, but why am I happy? Because it's that last sentence. But we'll talk about the first match. This would seem to be one of those cases where the trade block paid off in spades. Carolina can start a deal based on what you want from us. So exactly, they are like, hey, we are totally fine giving you what you want. However, this meets our trade block needs quite well. Also meaning I'm giving them something that they're interested in. But to be honest, you'll need to sweeten the value just a touch. That sweeten the value just a touch means you have a deal. What it means is you really only have to give up one of your 5, 6, or 7. I like to start with the 7. Sometimes it's slightly off, but you give up your 7. And it's green, or sometimes you can give up like a skater managing the block that has like no value as well. Like we can throw in Johnson. Actually, let's throw in. Actually, we're going to try to sign more later. Let's throw in Johnston, Ross Johnson here, and see if we can save it out. But usually you can go ahead and sort by the least valuable thing that they want. Johnson is white just because I already selected it, but there you go, he's right now. But yeah, there you go. So he's selected, and if we go to draft picks, the 7th is a little bit more valuable, so I don't think we're going to be able to get Johnson for this. I love it if he's able to, but So then they're going to give them a little bit more value than just like a pick. So, but they're pretty accepted. So, like I said, you don't always have to give up your 7th round pick. But basically, that means when you need to sweeten the value just a touch, they literally need just a touch. Just a little sliver of pixels coming off your TV or your screen or whatever. That's all they need. So there you go. Instead of getting Gudis for a 2nd and a 3rd, we traded Gudis and Ross Johnson, who's a 77 overall expiring contract, and has 0 plans for the future. We're able to get an additional 3rd out of that. So it's not a fine trade feature because it gives you the ultimate starting point. You know exactly what teams are interested in and about what value they're going to give you. So just for display sake here, we're going to go ahead and call up now, I think. Actually, no, we don't need that. We'll just go ahead and do that line. For display sake, what we're going to do here is also throw in, who did you want to contract? Truba. Yeah, Truba's going to modify the straight one. I don't know how big it is, but okay. You'll see that in the Pittsburgh. There we go, Pittsburgh. I love it. They want to give us Novak and a 3rd. Or the Wild will give a Spurgeon a 4th and a 6th. But we'll start the conversation here with Brian Russ. We'll talk about Russ. And really the value is pretty comparable. I mean, I kind of like the idea of getting Russ, 85 overall, does
he's out for the rest of the season. Oh.
I don't think he's a bad contract at all. He's making, $5 million per guy. I think it's perfect for the second line. Maybe he's one of those guys that gets pushed down like Evan Hayes. But you can see his value there. So I'm going to remove Russ from the trade line, or from the trade deal. You can see Russ here is red and is right about there for his trade value. But maybe, just maybe, instead of that, we could look and see some of their other picks. Maybe Pittsburgh has a goal for them. I don't think Pittsburgh would pay a trade partner for this example, but I think you guys are kind of seeing what I'm putting down here. If we wanted to go after a guy like maybe Runner McGroarty or Kindle, if we go after Benjamin Kindle, he's 76 overall at 18, got a decent amount of trade value, or we go over Rudicki. Same about the similar amount of trade value as Brian Russ does. I think it's actually less if I had to take a look at it. If we just go to all skaters, those guys will be in there. Yeah, you can see that Russ is here and Rudicki is here. So I don't want Russ. I'd like to get the younger upside asset that is Runner McGroarty. Because he's high top 6, he's 21. I think he could be a fit with our young core. There we go. See, he's a little bit longer than Russ. So what we're going to do, we're just going to go ahead and throw in a 6th round pick. And I like to do that just to make sure I'm squeezing every ounce of value out of it. So now I know that Pittsburgh was willing to give up a player like Russ. Now, here's the difference. Russ was red, which means they're more willing to get rid of him. I'm going to go ahead and give this a try. Runner McGroarty is a little less valuable than Russ, but I'm throwing in the 6th to hopefully sweeten the deal on my side, and we'll see if this trade goes through. But the trade is projected to be done all right. Reading the block means I'm reading the last one. But if you read the top, the Penguins are totally unwilling to part ways with what you requested from us. So unless you're giving us something spectacular, don't waste our time. It's a little bit rude, but you've done okay in the block means that the value isn't sufficient. So as you can see, Runner McGroarty may be less valuable than Brian Russ. But they are more inclined to trade away Russ, an aging player, and try to get younger as a team than they are to get rid of Runner McGroarty. Now I did add in a 6. Let's go ahead, and I did that so that I can do this. I'll throw in the 7th and see what they say. Now Truba for McGroarty at a 7th instead of a 6th. We'll propose that trade. Again, especially if you look at the trade block, unwilling to give up unless you really make it worth our while. Doesn't write what we even need is sufficient at all. So again, they don't think it's sufficient at all. And I think what that means is I won't be able to do Truba for McGroarty straight up. I'm just going to give it a try. Oh, I would. So there you go. You can see a little bit different in value as far as random players versus non-brand players, white players. You can see that if we go here, again, we can see that he's clearly less valuable. Not by much, but should be enough to probably get me that little sliver. But it's going to take me a bit more to get him off their team. I can even try and ask for, I probably couldn't ask for Eric Carlson, he wouldn't wait with trade clubs, but then I'm in of getting Malkin. If I wanted to get with Carlson now, I'd probably have to see the deal just a bit. Yeah. But the value is too far off, and too far off generally means I usually added like a 5th round pick to get too far off to go through. We'll do this, and it would go through, right? So and then the next screen comes up. That basically means that your roster would be under the limit, which I always like to keep my team at the limit unless I play with injuries on. I like to have just as many players, so when these screens pop up, I know that it's my eights in the hole. This is my little training hack, guys. So when you see that pop up, when this roster move summary pops up, always hit cancel and try to give them just a little bit less. Because what that roster move means is that trade would be accepted. We asked the 7th with that. I'm okay with a 5th, but then this little roster move summary, I only have to give up a 7th. And the best part about fine trade as well, guys, is it does work when it comes to other teams too. If you just hold your start button, you can scroll through the teams, and I went to Buffalo here, and I'm going to look at Owen Power. I think 22, 86, medium elite, another top defenseman that I'm totally, I think he's got a match our kind of outlook. And, well, yeah, Buffalo's kind of, as expected, looking to get a really elite player back in return. Maybe Cavish, Cutter Gauthier, or Leo Carlson. You guys know I don't want to give Leo Carlson, but they're at least willing to talk. You can ask them about Zach Benson as well. Similar story, right? We're looking at the same kind of thing. We do ask for Tage Thompson. They want Leo Carlson, right? So you're not going to be able to get something without giving something, but at least you know that it's part of the value bar that I would be okay with giving up. And I don't think there is much. I'm going to throw Trouba in here, but they don't want Trouba, which makes him even less valuable. So, for example, if I put Mintikov in here, they don't want Mintikov, even though he's slightly more valuable. I believe I would go through because they want to go VA, but don't want to give up Mintikov. They just want him less, right? They have enough left-hand defensemen. So then what this means, I'm going to try and make up for the value with a 3rd round pick and do Paling, Trouba in the 3rd for Owen Power. Just kind of spitballing here, eyeballing what the trade value is. Probably not going to go through. It's very interesting. Doesn't block needs, and the value isn't there whatsoever. So let's go ahead. Let's throw in a 2nd, I think. Trouba, yeah, but as you can see, I'm going to have to overpay because I'm giving them a player they don't want. I don't mind giving up Trouba in a 2nd and paying Owen Power because I think Power that I'm trading Trouba, a 2nd is a 2nd and paying over depth guys. So if I go ahead and propose this trade, it still isn't there. So trying to acquire a player that a team doesn't want to get rid of is actually quite difficult. Although you can get it done, you just generally have to pay more than I think you want to. You do want to get a star player, and you have to really hope that a team is willing